Good morning. Good morning, Your Royal Highness Princess Sarah. Good morning to the esteemed guests and delegates of this conference.
So again, I am Oposa, and I am the co-founder and chief mermaid of Save Philippine Seas. I see some confused faces about this chief mermaid title, but I promise I will explain it a little bit later. So I never planned to be the chief mermaid. Growing up, I had all sorts of ambitions. I wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, an Olympic figure skater, an interior designer, a Broadway star. Obviously, none of those things happened because when you have a plan in your head, reality doesn't always match that. I am from the Philippines. Is anybody here Filipino? Yes. And how many here have been to the Philippines? Okay, so a good number. It's not too strange, but I put up a map of where the Philippines is. Every year, there are scientists who come to the Philippines and they have the same conclusion, that the Philippines is the center of biodiversity. In fact, there's a scientist who said that the Philippines has more diversity on land and sea than any other place in the world. But of course, my particular favorite is to be underwater. Why is it important to look after the sea? It's not very hard. When you look after the sea, we look after ourselves. So the sea is the source of our livelihood, fishing and many, many tourism activities. It's also a source of our food. Think about all the protein and the meals that we've taken from the sea. It's also, of course, a source of tourism. And think about all the water-based activities you've done: diving, snorkeling, being on the beach. Or the water-based activities that you aspire to do. Maybe one day you want to be an explorer or an oceanographer. And of course, it's a source of our economy. It's what connects different countries together through shipping and other based economies. And of course, it's a source of our lives. You know that 50 to 80% of the oxygen that we breathe comes from the sea. So if we take care of it, we also take care of our source of life. Now, if the Philippines is the center of biodiversity, we also happen to be the center of adversity. And just about anything illegal and destructive can be found in the Philippines. Dynamite fishing, cyanide fishing, and all these other destructive practices. We have been described as the third biggest dumper of plastics in the ocean. There was a study that was published, and we're right after China and Indonesia, and we're so small compared to the other countries. So this is something that, it's a very urgent issue for us to act upon. But also, we're a hub for illegal wildlife trade. And sometime in 2011, I had just graduated college, looking for a job, thinking about what I wanted to do, and I heard about this big illegal wildlife trade case. And I remember the headline in the news was "Coral Reefs Twice the Size of Manila Destroyed." I was very upset, but I wasn't part of any big NGO. I wasn't a marine biologist, but I was a writer and I was a speaker, and I was very active on social media. So on social media, there were a few people who were very passionate about this issue, and we started tweeting each other. We didn't know each other, but we were tweeting each other, asking ourselves, what can we do about this issue? So we got together on Skype and we said, why don't we put up a Facebook page called Save Philippine Seas? And at that time, in 2011, I was really just supposed to be like the figurehead or the person speaking about Save Philippine Seas. But that was in 2011, it's 2018, so I guess I really enjoyed working for marine conservation. So in the next maybe 10-15 minutes or so, I want to share with you some of the very important lessons I've learned that the ocean has taught me. So first is, don't get tied down. If your dream job doesn't exist, make it up. So when we were deciding on how we were going to campaign, our graphic artist volunteer said, "Oh, Anna, let's make business cards so that we seem serious." So I said, "Okay, let's make business cards." And she said, "What title do you want to put on your business card?" And I was thinking about how companies have the chief executive officer and the chief finance officer. So I joked, I want to be the chief mermaid. And she said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, just put it." So my business card reads, co-founder and chief mermaid. So a few months later, I was in a conference just like this, and someone from the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources went up to me and said, Ms. Oposa, can I have your card? And I said, sure, so I gave it. A few days later, I received a letter, and it said, Ms. Anna Oposa, co-founder and chief mermaid. So I said, oh my God, the government is recognizing me. And then a year later, I received a letter from no less than the Office of the President of the Philippines, dropping the co-founder part and just sticking with chief mermaid. So I thought, well, if the Office of the President recognizes my title, then it must be taken seriously. So ever since then, people even in the government call me, hey, chief mermaid, or oh, hey, mermaid. So it just stuck, and I never got to outgrow it. So 7 years later, I'm still called the chief mermaid of the Philippines. But there must be some truth into this mermaid metaphor, because there's a writer who said that mermaids have no fear of depth and great fear of shallow living. And I feel that this description is very appropriate for what the last 7 years have been. So in 2011, just when I was starting, I made a wish upon a sea star. And my big dream was to establish the country's first shark and ray sanctuary. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I graduated with a degree in English studies, so I had no educational background to do this, but it was so clear in my head how I was going to do it. So my friend said, oh, there's this award, and if you win it, you win 50,000 euros. And I looked at it and I was like, well, we're never gonna win this because all the other winners are twice my age. I was 23 at that time, and they all had PhDs and had years and years of experience. And Save Philippine Seas was just a Facebook page. So anyway, I had nothing to lose, so I applied. And then months and months later, I got a call saying, Ms. Oposa, you're one of the 3 winners for that year for the Future for Nature Award. So I flew to the Netherlands, and I received this check, and 50,000 euros was deposited to my bank account. And imagine being 23, having a dream from having no money to suddenly you have 50,000 euros. At first, I was so proud because I was like, I'm the first Filipino, I'm the youngest winner. And then I get home and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. But you know, when your dream is so clear, that is going to be your guiding light. So I moved to Manapasco Island in Cebu. And in this community, this is the only place in the world where thresher sharks can be seen almost every day. So this is a photo of the thresher shark, and it's a rare species. And for this community, the thresher shark is actually their treasure shark because 80% of their municipal income comes from the ecosystem of industries built around this shark. So you have your dive operators, you have restaurants, you have massage therapists, souvenirs, etc. So one of the first things that I did was, to my surprise, a lot of people had never seen their marine resources. So we started working with law enforcers, dive guides, and the most important is teachers. So we decided to take them outside because, you know, the problem with the sea is that whether it's in bad condition or not, it looks the same. If you're flying above a body of water, you won't see if the underwater life is degraded. So that's one of the biggest problems that we wanted to address. So we decided to take them snorkeling, and we took them to a week-long environmental education training program. And at first, they were so scared to go in the water. And imagine, these are teachers who have been living all their lives in an island. And it was after that they started integrating environmental education into their curriculum. Last year, we discovered that 80% of the students in the school had never been in the sea because they had no access to snorkeling equipment and they had no access to ride a boat. They had no resources to ride a boat. So we raised some funds to buy some snorkeling gear, and now every weekend, we started this in January, every weekend we take at least 20 students to go snorkeling. This is fundamental because you need to be connected, you need to feel connected to the sea for you to be inspired to protect it. And in in the end, if we want the community to be the ones to take care of their resources, they have to be connected to it and they have to be inspired to take care of it. But you might be wondering, what if you don't live beside a body of water? How do you make your own contribution to the oceans and to conserving the oceans? Well, you have to make your advocacy part of everyday life. It's in the daily choices that we make. So, growing up, we're taught about the 3 R's, right? Reuse, reduce, recycle. The environment is such in a bad state that we can't just limit ourselves to these 3 R's anymore. We have to rethink, do we really need to buy something that we're going to throw away in a few months? Or maybe we can spend a little bit more on something that will last longer. And then refuse. What does that mean? When you go to a cafe, you can say, oh, I don't need a straw. I can drink without a straw. Or you can, if you're going shopping, you can say, I don't need a plastic bag because I brought my own reusable bag. So it's just refusing single-use plastics and looking for alternatives to be able to help and reduce the waste that's in our environment. Another important lesson is to use your imagination. Sometime last year, I heard about this big proposal. Nickelodeon, who here watches Nickelodeon? Yes? Yes, okay. So I heard about this proposal for Nickelodeon to build an underwater resort in Coron, Palawan. So Palawan, if you've been to the Philippines, it's called the last ecological frontier. And I was very upset about this because if you've been to Palawan, you know that we don't need artificial structures. It's beautiful enough. So my friends and I got together and we thought, what are we gonna do? And the 2 of them were busy, so they said, why don't you write an online petition and create something on Photoshop? So I said, okay, so I spent maybe 15 minutes writing this and I posted it. And to our surprise, within a few days, we had over 100,000 signatures. A lot of people were also very upset. And we received a lot of coverage, both local and international media. My phone was ringing nonstop. And I'm gonna tell you a secret. I was actually pretty scared because we were going against big corporations. We had to meet with a real estate developer called Coral World Park. We went to the Nickelodeon Philippines office. We wrote to the different government agencies involved. But it also taught me something, which is to take problems of the sea seriously, but not ourselves. So when we were thinking of a campaign tagline, I was asking our youth volunteers, we call them the Sea Campers, and I asked them, can you suggest a tagline for our campaign? And one of them said, Coron is not Bikini Bottom. And I said, what's Bikini Bottom? And he said, OMG, how can you not know what Bikini Bottom is? It's because you're old. I don't think so. I just don't watch SpongeBob because I don't find it intellectually stimulating. So after that, we came out with this poster, and it went viral. So it was shared thousands and thousands of times. And this hashtag actually trended on Twitter, which is a big deal in the Philippines because we're the social media capital of the world. And it was continuous campaigning. We didn't stop online, continued offline. We had a team go to Palawan and talk to the locals about the consequences of the possible underwater park being built. So it's very important that you walk your talk, right? And 7 months later, we received news that Nickelodeon actually dropped the project. Of course, our big dream is for Coral World Park to say that they're not going to pursue it, and that hasn't happened. At least not yet. But when you're pursuing a campaign or an advocacy, it's very important to celebrate your successes. Sometimes you don't achieve the big dream, or you don't achieve the big objective. But along the way, that's not a failure, because you're going to plant seeds that will eventually grow, and you'll succeed in ways that you didn't even imagine. So, if Nickelodeon dropped out of the project, the Coral World Park is going to have a very hard time looking for investors. So that's already a success on its own. In 2015, my big dream came true, my other big dream came true, and through an executive order, the site that we were protecting actually did become the country's first shark-injury sanctuary. But, of course, in conservation, it's like a hose with many holes. If you cover one, another one will come out. So now what we're doing is raising funds to establish the management plan, and now we're working with different stakeholders, like the fishermen, to plot the marine protected areas, and then continuing, of course, engaging the teachers, the students, the women of the community. And obviously, SPS, or Save Philippine Seas, we're very passionate about education. You know, I love doing things like this where I get to share what I know to different kinds of people. But more than that, I'm more focused and interested in education that leads to action, or edu-action. And you know, you may memorize all these amazing facts and you can say them and impress people with different numbers, but I'm more interested in how you're going to turn that knowledge into action. How are you going to make a difference? And I always go back to this quote, you know, when you're frustrated about a type of issue, and you think, I won't do anything about it because somebody will do something about it. Well, guess what? You are somebody. And you shouldn't wait for other people to do what it is you're frustrated about, to do something about what you're frustrated about. And that became the inspiration for our new website. So in December last year, we launched our new website, SavePhilippineSeas.org, and what we did was our campaigns, we put them together into toolkits and letters to leaders, and everything there is for free and downloadable and open source. So you can even put your own logo there if you want to use them, and if you want to use them to campaign. So some of the toolkits we have is Straw Wars, which is obviously a play on Star Wars. You've noticed by now that I love puns, we love puns. So Straw Wars. What we do with the materials in Straw Wars is we write to different cafes and resorts to get them to eliminate or reduce single-use straws. Another one is Defying Gravity, where we reach out to event organizers to get them to stop releasing balloons and lanterns during events, because what goes up must come down. And Plastic Battle is one of our newest campaigns where we partner with hotels and resorts to stop selling plastic bottles and instead make refills available for free or for a fee. This is my real advocacy, to stop global warming. And what do I mean by that? It's really just not sitting and complaining about the situation that we're in, but really taking action to do something about the issue. Whether it's, you know, sharing a post on social media or reaching out to your teachers to integrate some kind of environmental education practice in your school. And let me give you a compare and contrast of how far SPS has gone. So in 2011, we had no staff. We have no office because we can't afford this. We had zero operating budget. We had no money. We had Facebook and Twitter. That's all we had as our capital, and we had a lot of optimism. Now, can you guess how many we are in the team? We're 4, and this is already a big achievement for me. I got to hire 3 people last year, so I'm no longer a one-woman NGO. We still have no office because we can't afford it. And you know, when people say, can we interview you in your office? And I'm always like, oh, that's just my bedroom. So maybe we can go somewhere else. And we have a lot of volunteers, mostly the graduates of the CCAMP program that we run with young people. And we have an operating budget of 4 million pesos, minimum, which is about $76,000. It seems big, but when you compare it to other big NGOs, this is like loose change. But having said that, I will never make it an excuse to operate without funding. Because for me, it's the lack of resources that have made us very resourceful. So whether or not we have $50,000 or zero, we'll still continue doing our work, and we're going to do it with a lot of passion. We have a Facebook page which already has over 110,000 followers. We have a Twitter account, and we have an Instagram account, so we added one more social media platform. But best of all, our optimism is stronger than ever. And even with the many failures and the setbacks that we've gone through the last 7 years, we're still remaining very hopeful. Because this is a lesson that I've learned. We have to have hope in humanity. And hope is essential for survival. Have you seen the movie Princess Egypt? There's this song there, and there's a line that I always go back to. Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Oh, thank you so much. My hands full. Okay, but again, though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. And if you feel that hope, you have to hold on to it because it's what will fuel you to continue. And you know what makes me very, very hopeful is working with young people. So we run a program called the Sea and Earth Advocates Camp, and we work with 18 to 23-year-olds. And you know what? I realized that young people were always told that we're the leaders of the future. And I think we need to stop agreeing with that, because we can be the leaders of today if we are given the right opportunities and the right skills to be able to lead and make our own difference. And I'm very happy that one of our C-Camp alumni is actually here today. He's very shy, so I won't point him out. But he co-founded a project called Save Kampong Ayer, and it works on different issues in the area. So if you're looking for a local initiative to support, please look it up. You have to help each other in your own community. And that project is one example of you leading and creating opportunities for other youth to be empowered and to make their own changes in their community. And so I'm going to close very soon, but I just wanted to leave you with a few more notes. One is, don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do something. All the time I'm told, you're better off not trying, you should just get married and have kids, don't be too ambitious because a man won't be attracted to you if you're too ambitious. And if I listened to that, then I wouldn't be doing all these fun things that I get to do. So I always go back to this quote, don't tell me the sky is the limit when there are footprints on the moon. All the limits you have are imposed by you. So don't do it. Don't do it to yourselves. And always dream bigger than you think you can achieve. And so I would like to leave you with this final note, which is to seize the day. It is thank you for appreciating my point. But it's incredible to be part of this conference. And thank you very much for inviting me here at ISB, to the sponsors, to the delegates, and the teachers and the organizers. And thank you, Your Royal Highness Princess Sarah, also for supporting this for the last few years. And take this opportunity, seize this day to learn from each other and to learn what it is you can do. And together and individually, we can change the narrative of the ocean and of the world. Thank you.